Senator Marco Rubio, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, you. Good morning.
Senator, what's your take on these numbers? In second, it's got to feel good, but a distance from first, it's got to make you scratch your head.
Well, a couple things. First of all, the Nevada results are always a little different from what you see in other parts of the country. Their caucus system is different even from Iowa's. Last time, Mitt Romney got over 50%, so Donald Trump actually underperformed what Mitt Romney did, not once but twice in the state. Look, I've been saying this for a long time now. This is an unusual election. Throw out everything you know about presidential politics, because this year is very different. It's been proven week after week.
No kidding.
And right now what you have is a situation where the majority of the Republican electorate, the majority of Republican voters in this country do not want Donald Trump to be the nominee. I think that's been pretty clear now. The problem is that they're divided up among 4 people. At some point in South Carolina, it was 5 people. Before that, it was 7 people. So until there's some consolidation here, you're not going to have a clear alternative to Donald Trump. And the argument we've made is, I'm as conservative as anyone in this race, but I'm the conservative that can unify the Republican Party. You've seen it in the last 72 hours with a number of people that weren't with me initially. You know, a lot of the establishment people didn't even want me to run. A lot of them went with Jeb or whoever. But they're now all starting to consolidate across the spectrum in this party with the understanding that if we don't come together, we're never going to be able to provide a clear alternative to the direction that Donald Trump wants to take the Republican Party and the country.
Well, what about this kind of consolidation? You know, now there's pressure on, for instance, you and Ted Cruz to somehow unite, to join forces to stop Donald Trump. Is that a possibility? Because a lot of the experts say without something like that, it's Trump's to lose.
Yeah, well, first of all, both Ted and I are running vibrant national campaigns, so the voters are going to have to provide the consolidation. It's not going to be a deal between candidates, and that just never happens, and it isn't going to happen now. And I think voters are going to have to start making a choice here about not just what kind of Republican Party, but what kind of country we're going to have in the 21st century. Because I'm as angry and as frustrated as anyone. I've been angry and frustrated since 2010 when I ran for the Senate and had to take on the entire establishment in the U.S. Senate of Republicans. But I also understand that while anger and frustration can motivate you to do something, you got to know what you're going to do. And voters deserve to know how you're going to do it. And right now, all Donald says is, you know, he tells you what the result is going to be, but he refuses to outline how we're going to achieve these things. And voters deserve to know that, because this is the most important political job on the planet.
Right, and you're going through the interview process, all of you are right now. Well, Senator Rubio, the argument that Senator Cruz is making, he says, look, I won Iowa. At least I have that under my belt. We need to congratulate you on your last two performances, getting second place. But at some point, do you need to start winning? And where can you do that? And we know you've picked up some high-profile endorsements since Monday. We can show you a graphic of that. Senator Orrin Hatch, Bob Dole, Tom Tillis, and the list goes on. Where do you see that you can win?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that you don't win the nomination by how many states you win. Now, ultimately, when you get to winner take all starting March 15th, you have to win states, because those states will award all of their delegates to the winner of that state. But between now and then, you just said it right now, in Nevada, I got 5 delegates and Ted Cruz got 5 delegates. So obviously not as many as Donald Trump, but it takes over 1,200 delegates to be the nominee. We're not even close to getting to that number.
Right.
There are states out there right now that if you were to win that state, it would more than make up the difference between first place and third place in the delegate count. So right now, all of these states are proportional. They are awarding delegates on proportion, meaning people are picking up delegates, and the count is still relatively close in terms of the states that are laying out there.
But where are you going to do well,
15th,
Senator Rubio? Where are you going to do well on Super Tuesday? You've got a lot of delegates up for grabs.
Yeah,
where do you think next Tuesday, where are you going to do well?
Well, we feel great in every one of those states, and that we're going to pick up delegates in all of them. Now, some we feel better than others in terms of really challenging to finish even stronger than we have in the past. You know what I'm not going to do and get into this Joe Namath style, prediction of we're going to win here or win there. We've never played that expectation game. I'm going to tell you, though, we feel really good about next Tuesday. We're 6 days away. We have an organization and a good team and a good plan for every state on the map. So we'll find. I think we're going to surprise some people next Tuesday. We feel optimistic about it. By the way, a week later, there's a slew of other elections. And then we're going to get into March 15th, Ohio and Florida and some other key places. And we feel very good about where we're going to be after March 15th.
Senator, people admire the fact that you had a debate or a few minutes there in a debate that you suffered for in the polls in New Hampshire. You came back from that, did well again, coming in second place. People admire the way you're campaigning. You're doing it in a positive way. But is it possible that you're seeing what happened to Ted Cruz when he went at Donald Trump? You saw what happened to Jeb Bush and Governor Perry when at Donald Trump, and they suffered in the polls. Is that the reason you're not going at Donald Trump, because you're concerned about the outcome?
No, look, first of all, we have gone at Donald Trump, but when it's been on policy. Look, at the last debate, Donald Trump said George W. Bush was responsible for 9/11, and I took him on that issue. But here's what I don't understand. I know that everybody's dying to see Republicans tear each other up because it makes for great coverage. I'm not saying you guys in general, but in general, everybody in the press wants to see a food fight because it's great content. It drives the conflict that, of course, helps with ratings and makes shows more interesting. I'm not in this race to beat up on other Republicans. If I'm attacked, I'm going to set the record straight. If there's a policy difference, we're going to talk about those. But I'm not in this to beat up on Republicans and call Republicans names. I want us to win this election.
Well,
I don't want Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton to be president.
I didn't do a good job of making my statement then. To separate yourself from Donald Trump consistently rather than talk generally. Since you want to be first, why not go after who is first?
Well, again, and everywhere that I go, I talk about who I am and what I stand for, and I point out how it's a clear contrast, not just from Donald, but from Ted and from others. I'm as conservative as anyone in this race, as I said earlier, because Ted Cruz likes to say he's the only conservative, and I'm offering real answers. My point to people is, look, I'm as angry and frustrated as anybody watching this broadcast about the direction of this country. That's why I ran for the Senate in 2010 and took on the whole establishment of the Republican Party in Washington, D.C., but I also know that being angry is not going to solve the problem. We have to know. We have to have ideas about exactly what you're going to do. And the people watching this, they deserve to know from me and everyone else running, what are your policies? How are you going? Don't just tell me what the outcome is going to be. I understand Donald likes to say he's going to make America great again. How? How exactly are you going to do it? And particularly on the foreign policy front, you have to have some attention to detail. Voters deserve to know this.
Sure.
I'll continue to make that point. I don't view that as negative. That's not an attack. That's just a difference between candidates, and we're going to continue to talk about that.
Okay, well, going into the caucus sites last night, there were teams of pollsters out there. So we've got some of the results from the entry polls in Nevada. And what's really curious here, Senator, is that even though so many pundits had said, you know, Donald Trump's never going to wind up with any Hispanics or Latinos voting for him, he actually won, and he won by a lot. He wound up with 45% of the Hispanic and Latino vote. You wound up with 28%, and Ted Cruz wound up with 18%. How do you analyze?
And I know that's an interesting graphic. Yeah, but that's like, they were like less than 7 or 8% of the total thing. The margin of error is huge. I'm not saying that they're, and that's self-identified, by the way. I'm not saying it isn't true. It could be, you know, but at the end of the day, I've always said to you guys, I've always said this repeatedly, Americans of Hispanic descent are voters. They care about the future of our country. They care about everything else people care about. They care about jobs. They care about terrorism. They're impacted by illegal immigration negatively in communities that are overrun by that. I've always said that about Americans of Hispanic descent. It's the press that tries to categorize people by race and ethnicity, but if you're an American of Hispanic descent, you're paying the same tax rate, your kids are going to the same school, and you're worried about terrorists just like everybody else. You're no different than any other voter when it comes to those issues.
Well, you were sprinting through Nevada, off to Michigan, and trying to get set for Super Tuesday in a debate. The President of the United States at about 10:30 Eastern Time went to the microphone and said, here's my plan to close Gitmo. It's better for America. This has been a poster for our enemies to attack us. What's your reaction to what he presented, and do you believe that?
I don't believe it's the reason why ISIS and al-Qaeda attacks us. It has nothing to do with ISIS and al-Qaeda attacking us. There's also no national security rationale for closing Guantanamo. All this is the president trying to fulfill a campaign promise. Number 3, he is releasing people now from Guantanamo that are returning to the battlefield to kill Americans. Spanish police yesterday arrested a Gitmo former detainee. When I'm president, we are not going to close Guantanamo. We're going to keep it. And if we capture terrorists alive, we're going to start sending people there again.
What if he used an executive order to put the 60 into America?
The what, I'm sorry?
What if he uses an executive order to put 60 Gitmo detainees into the American court system and legal system?
Well, first of all, we have to fight them on that. But second of all, my first day in office, I'll reverse that executive order. We'll put them right back on a plane, and they'll go right back to Guantanamo. And in addition to that, we will be capturing again. They will be going to Guantanamo, and we will be finding out everything they know.
All right. Senator Marco Rubio joining us this morning from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Senator.
Thank you very much.